Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Taanis Daf continues the Gemara's stories about tzaddikim and the miracles that happened to them. The Gemara will list many stories of Rav Chanina ben Daisa, a lot of which surround how poor he was. The Gemara will then talk about Rav Elazar ben Pedas, how poor he was, and the dream he had, which was going to rescue him from that. Then the Gemara will list more stories about situations in which people declared a fast day or a day of prayer in order to bring rain, and it did not work, and what they did in order to make the rain actually fall. This will take us all the way to the end of the third parak of Meseches Taanis. So we're in the middle of discussing the stories of Rabbi Chanina ben Daisa and his wife. So the Gemara says they were so poor that they had no bread, they didn't have anything to eat, they didn't have anything to bake in the oven, but Rabbi Chanina ben Daisa's wife was embarrassed that she didn't have anything, so therefore in order to create a smoke screen, literally that she had something, she would heat the oven on Friday and put in something that made a lot of smoke so that there would be smoke coming out of her chimney and people would think that she had what to bake. The Gemara says that she had a bad neighbor who knew that she didn't have anything to eat, and she said, what is all the smoke coming out of the oven? So she knocked on the door in order to try to investigate the situation. And Rabbi Chanina's wife was embarrassed, and she went into the bedroom. She went into an inner room. But a miracle happened, and the neighbor saw that the oven was full of bread and that the mixing bowl was full of the dough. So she called out, Mrs., bring your tool to take the bread off the side of the walls of the oven because it's getting burned. So Chanina's wife called out. He said, yeah, I just went to get the shovel. I just went to get the scraper. And Tana said that she actually did go. She actually had a scraper because even though she had no bread, she was used to miracles happening, and therefore she kept a tool to take the bread out of the oven in her house. And then there's another story about Rav Chanina ben Daisa and his wife that she said to him, how long are we going to suffer from being poor for so much? So he said, well, what do you want me to do? So she said, be mispal. You should be given something that's worth value, something that's important. So he davened, and a hand came out of Shemayim and gave him the golden leg of a table. He said, I saw a dream in which the tzaddikim are sitting in Gan Eden and they're eating by tables. Most of them have a golden table with 3 legs, and we have a golden table with only 2 legs. So she said, do you want to eat at a defective table? So he said, no. So she said, well, what are we supposed to do? So she said, be mispalel, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should take it back. So he davened, and the leg of the table was taken back. Abraisa says that this miracle is even greater than the first one because sometimes Shemayim gives, but almost never do they ever take things back. Now, another famous incident that happened was Friday night. Rav Chanina ben Daisa saw that his daughter was upset. He said, why are you upset? And she said, I accidentally filled up the candles with vinegar and not oil, and I lit it, and now it's already Shabbos, and it's not going to burn. As soon as it hits the oil, it's going to go out. So he said, no, the one who said that oil burns can just as easily say that vinegar will burn. And indeed, it burned, and it burned the entire Shabbos, and they took the fire from it to say Havdalah. Next, the Gemara says, Rabbi Chanina ben Daisa had some goats, and the people complained, your goats are destroying our fields. They're eating up our fields. So Rabbi Chanina says, if it's true that they are destroying your fields, let them be eaten by a bear, and if it's not true, let them each bring home a bear stuck on their horns. Well, all the goats came home that night with a bear on its horns. Now the Gemara says it was a neighbor who was building a house, but the beams weren't long enough to reach from one wall to the other wall. So she came to Rabbi Chanina and she said, I built my house, and I'm trying to install my beams, but the beams don't reach from one wall to the other wall. I can't use them. Rabbi Chanina asked her, what's your name? She said, it's Aiku. So he said, Aiku, your beams should be long and reach from wall to wall. Well, the Brisa says that they grew, or they were added on to by Malachim, until they were so long that they stuck out an extra amma on each side. They were in amma too long on each side, they actually stuck out. So the Tana Palimo says, I saw that house, and I saw the beams sticking out on each side, and people said to me, this is the house of Chanina ben Daisa, made with his tefillos. Now, the Gemara goes back to the story of the goats. The Gemara says, where did he have goats from? He was very poor, and you're not allowed to raise goats in Eretz Yisrael, so what's he doing with the goats? So the Gemara said they were not his goats. A person once left chickens in the doorway of his house, and Rabbi Chanina ben Daisa's wife found them, and Rabbi Chanina paskin that she has to return them. Of course, she didn't know to whom to return them, so I had to wait until the man came back. In the meantime, they had to take care of them. So the chickens laid eggs, and he said the eggs belonged to the owner. The eggs hatched with more chickens and more chickens and more chickens. And it was too difficult to take care of them. So Rabbi Chanina told his wife to exchange them for goats. Goats were easier to take care of, but the goats didn't belong to him, they belonged to the person who owned. And these were the goats that were destroying other people's fields that he said should be eaten by a bear if they really were. At least he wouldn't be destroying them. Anyway, the man came back eventually, and he said, I left my chickens here. He said to someone else, I left my chickens here, and Rabbi Chanina overheard it, and he said, do you have a siman? You have an identifying indication that they were yours. He gave him the siman, and he gave him the goats. Another one talks about Rav Elazar ben Pedas, who was very poor as well. So the Gemara says he was so poor that once he had to have bloodletting done, and you have to eat after you let blood, as the Gemara says clearly in Masechah Shabbos, but didn't have anything to eat. The only thing he had was a piece of garlic, so he ate the piece of garlic. But he fainted, he fell asleep. And the Chachamim went to visit him, and they saw that he was crying and laughing in his sleep. And an ray of light came out of his forehead. So when he woke up, they said, okay, what was that all about? What was all the crying and the laughing? He said, I had a dream. In a dream, I had a conversation with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was sitting near me, and I said to him, how long am I going to suffer? So Hashem said, Elazar, my son, I could solve the problem for you, but I have to destroy the world and start it over again. It's the only way that it could help you, and maybe you'll be born in a time which there will be enough food for you. So I said, Rabbi Elazar said, you mean you have to do all that and it's only maybe that my situation will improve? So I said, let me ask you this. Have I lived most of my life, or I still have most of my life left to go? So Hashem said, oh, you're more than halfway done. They said, if I'm more than halfway done, I don't want to start over. I'll just keep it the way it is, and whatever will happen, will happen. I don't want to go back to the beginning and do this whole thing over again. So Hashem said, in the schus of the fact that you said, don't turn the world over again, I'm going to give you an Olam Haba, 13 rivers of Shemen Afar Simon, of beautiful Afar Simon oil, which will be as clear as the rivers of the Euphrates and the Tigris, the Chidekel and the Pras. And you're going to enjoy them. Now that's obviously a mashal for something far more sublime. Often, Afar Simon oil is used to symbolize a spiritual hana, a spiritual pleasure. So I said to Hashem, that's all you're giving me? That's not enough. So Hashem said, well, what else should I give you? Can't take it away from other people that deserve it. So the machlokes, what Rav Elazar's answer was, either it was, I'm not asking it from someone who deserves it, I'm asking from someone who lost his share in Olam Haba, or he said, I'm not asking from a person, you're not a person. If you'd be a person, you'd have a limited amount of resources, but you're not a person, you have plenty. So give me some of the other things you have no shortage. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Kaviyachol, as it were, he was pleased with Elazar ben Pedas and his answer, and he tapped him on his forehead with his fingers, Kaviyachol, and he said, Elazar, my son, my arrows have struck you, my arrows. Another Gemara goes back to stories of rain. People were mispal for rain, but did not get answered. The Gemara says, Rav Chama bar Chanina proclaimed a fast day in order to bring rain, but the rain did not arrive. As the people said, well, when Yeshua ben Levi made a fast day, his fields were accepted and it rained. Rav Chama bar Chanina responded and he said, that's Bar Levi, that's the son of Levi. He was on a much higher level than I am. So they said, so bring him here, let him be mispal here, so that we'll have the rain. Now, in order to have the rain come, you need the people to do tshuva. They said, maybe if he comes, people will start taking it seriously and they'll do tshuva. So they went and they brought him and they davened, but the rain didn't come. So he said to them, do you want to invoke all as the chusim in order that the rain should come? And they said, yes. So he looked up at the sky and said, sky, cover your face with clouds. In the sky, nothing happened. So he said, what? This sky is chutzpahdik, this brazenness of the sky. And at that moment, the sky became covered with clouds and the rain did fall. Now, Levi once made a fast day, and the rain didn't fall. So he said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you went and sat up on high, and you don't have mercy. You don't have mercy on your children. So at that time, the rain did fall, but Levi became lame afterwards. He limped forever after because he spoke without derech eretz, without kavod. Rav Elazar said a person should never speak with chutzpah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because a great person like Levi went and he did it, and look what happened to him. So Gemara said, one second, are you sure that Levi became lame because of what he said here? We learned elsewhere that Levi became lame because he was showing how to do kida. Kida is a type of bowing. He was showing Rebbe how you do it, and it involves from a standing position leaning all the way over until you can actually kiss the floor. When you just support yourself with your thumbs. When you stand up from that position, it puts a lot of strain on the hamstrings and on the calf muscles, and that's why he became lame. So Gemara says, yeah, it was both that caused it. He was decreed to become lame because of this, and he became lame through that action. Now the Gemara says, Rav Chia bar Luliani heard some clouds talking to each other, and they said, let's go rain on Amanu Mayov. So Rav Chia said, Ribono shel Olam, you gave the Torah to your people, you went around to all the nations of the world and offered it to them. They didn't want it, so now you're going to go give them rain? Give rain here in Eretz Yisrael. Rav Chia's tefillah was answered, and the clouds poured the rain in Eretz Yisrael. Now, on the topic of Rav Chia bar Luliani, the Gemara says another drasha that he said. Gemara says, what is the meaning of the pasuk Tzadik atam yifrach ke'eretz v'avanim yiskeh? A righteous man, a tzaddik, will grow like a tamar, like a date tree, and like an erez, like a cedar tree in Lebanon, he will grow tall. Which is it? Is a tzaddik like a date tree or like a cedar tree? So Gemara says it's a bit like both. He's like a date tree in the sense that he bears fruits. Cedar trees don't bear fruits. And he's like a cedar tree in the sense that if you cut him down, he'll grow back up again. Not like a date tree where you cut it down, it won't grow back. Gemara says, is it true that date trees grow back? I have a proof that date trees do not grow back. We have a halacha that discusses what happens if somebody buys a tree from his friend for the purpose of cutting it down. He's supposed to leave enough tree behind that it'll grow back. So there's halachas as to how much he has to leave. If he's cutting an old shikma, a sycamore, then he has to leave one tefach. He has to leave 2 tefachim for an old shikma. If it's an elon, a general tree, has to leave 1 tefach. If it's a young shikma, a young sycamore, has to leave 3 tefachim. If it's reeds and vines, he can only cut from the lowest knot on the tree. In the case of the kolim and arozim, that's palm trees and cedar trees, then he can dig out the whole tree because it's not going to grow back anyway. So you see, a cedar tree is not going to grow back. So how could you tell me that a cedar tree is going to grow back? So my answer is there's different types of cedar trees, different types of arozim. There's a Gemara which we learned in Rosh Hashanah. There are 10 different types of arozim. 7 of them are listed in the pasuk, which says, Atain ba'midbar, Erez, Shita, Hadas, Eitz Shemen, Asim, Ba'arava, Barosh, Tidor, Vesashor, Yachdov. Lists 7 types of trees there. Those are 7 of the 10. Some of these grow back and some do not. And therefore, this halacha here is talking about trees that don't grow back, but a tzaddik is compared to an erez that does grow back. So now the Gemara has another case of rain. The Gemara says that Rabbi Elazar ben Horkanis declared 13 fast days on the Kehila and it didn't fall. And after the last fast, people started going home. So Rabbi Elazar said, hello, haven't been answered. Where are you going? Did you already make graves for yourself? You ready to die? And everybody started crying because of that, and that's when the rains fell. Another time it happened that Rabbi Elazar was the Shliach Tzibor, and he said Shemon Esrei, the 24 brachos of a fast day for rain. He wasn't answered, and Rabbi Kiva went to be the Shliach Tzibor after him, and he composed the Tefillah Avinu Malkeinu. He said, Avinu Malkeinu Elenu Melech Ala'ata, our Father, our King. We have no king but you. Avinu Malkeinu L'man Charachem Aleinu, our Father, our King. For your sake have mercy on us. And then the rain came. So the people began murmuring, and began to say, you see, Rabbi Eliezer is not as great as we think he is. He was the Rebbe of Rabbi Akiva. Versus a voice came out of Shemayim, an echo, and it said, it's not because Rabbi Akiva is greater than Rabbi Eliezer, but because Rabbi Akiva is Ma'avra al Midaisov. He forgives people even although they don't deserve it. Next, the Gemara has a brisa discussing the halacha which we've seen in our last Mishnah, a few Mishnahs ago, which was how much... At what point in the day of a fast day, when it starts raining, at what point do we cancel the fast? Do we say that it's rained enough? So the Gemara now first discusses how much rain should fall altogether. When we say it's rained enough, how much rain is that? So Gemara has a machlokes on the topic. So Gemara says Rabbi Meir says to the level that a plow reaches into the ground is not that deep. The depth that a plow cuts. The Chachamim say it depends. It depends on what the quality of the soil is. If it's dry soil, so 1 tefach is enough. If it's medium soil, it's 2 tefachim, and if it's plowed up soil, then it's 3 tefachim. Gemara quotes a brisa. Shimon ben Elazar says that anytime it rains 1 tefach from above, you have 3 tefachim of water underneath the ground. The waters of the deep in the ground that rise up toward it. So there is a contribution from below when it rains from above. Gemara asks, is a different brisa that says that the water from the deep comes up 2 tvachim? Gemara says no, because that's talking about plowed soil. It's talking about unplowed soil. Unplowed soil is 2 tvachim, like we said, and here it's talking about plowed soil. Okay, now the Gemara quotes Rabbi Elazar, who says when you pour water and wine on the mizbeach on Sukkot, the deep water say to each other, Abba b'mecha, flow forth your water. Because I hear the voice of my two friends. I hear the wine and the water trickling down from the Mizbeach into the deep. That's quoted from the Pasuk, which says, Tahoim kairei l'kol tinarecha, Tahoim el tahoim kairei l'kol tinarecha, that the deep water calls to the other deep water by the sound of your flowing in the pipes. Now, Rabbah says, I saw the Malach Ridya. Ridya is the Malach who announces the coming of the water. He looks like a calf, his lips are open in a smile, he stands between the upper water and the lower water. In the upper water he says, sprinkle your water down, and the lower water he says, flow your water up. Like it says in the Pasuk, Hanitzanim niruv aretz, the blossoms are already seen in the land, Eisez Amir Higiyah. Time of the singing has arrived. Kol Atar Nishma B'Artzeinu. The song of the dove is heard in our land. Okay, now the Gemara discusses the halacha as to when we should cancel the fast day. At what point in the rain should we cancel the fast day? So we've seen this topic in our Mishnah. The Gemara now brings a brisa. So the Gemara says we'll divide the day up into periods. If it rains before sunrise, everybody agrees you cancel the fast day. If it rains after sunrise but before chatzos, so there's a machlekes. Rabbi Meir says you do have to complete the fast day, and Rabbi Yehuda says you do not have to complete the fast day. That's considered enough. You don't have to complete the fast. Now, if it rained after chatzos within the first 3 hours, it's also machlekes. Rabbi Yossi says you don't have to complete the fast day. With the Tanna Kama, that's the first two, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir would say you do have to complete the fast day. If it rained after the 9th hour of the day, everybody agrees you have to finish the fast day. Now, why does Rabbi Yossi say that in the 3 hours after Chatzais, if it rains there, you don't have to finish the fast? He gets it from Achav Melech Yisrael. The pasuk says, Harisa ki nichna Achav. You see that Achav has humbled himself before me. So therefore, there has been a tshuva that Achav, he himself fasted at that time. Now the Gemara discusses Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya once made a fast day and rain fell after sunrise. So he wanted a paskin like Rabbi Meir that you do have to continue the fast day. And Rav Ami said, we learned in the Mishnah that it goes by before chatzos or after chatzos. If it starts raining before chatzos, you don't have to finish the fast day. Then the Gemara has a couple of stories about Shmuel HaKatan. Where it says Shmuel HaKatan declared a fast day and the rain fell before sunrise. So the Kilo wanted to say, so you see we're tzaddikim. We got the rain before sunrise. Shmuel HaKatan said that's not the pshat. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want to hear your tefillas. He said, give them rain so I shouldn't have to hear them. It's like a servant who comes to ask something of his master and he tells another servant, give him what he wants before he even asks, I don't want to hear from him. Now the opposite story happened is that once they declared a fast day and they were mispal the whole day and the rain didn't come until the day was over, until after sunset. So now they said, okay, well now we did it right because now he wanted to hear our tefillas. That's why he withheld the rain until the end. Shmuel HaKatan again said, nope, that's like somebody who says, you know what, I'll give my Eved, but not until he really suffers. He really has to beg and beg and beg, then only I'm going to give him what he wants. So Gemara says, so what does Shmuel HaKatan want? What is the right way? What is an actual good siman? The answer, that's when you say Mashav Varach, you say what you want, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives it to you. That's it. Wind starts to blow and the rain starts to fall. Now the Gemara says, and once happened, we're quoting in our Mishnah again, we had said that there was a fast day decreed in Lud, and the rain fell, and Rav Tarfon told them to go home and eat, and afterwards they said, Halal HaGadol, the great Halal. So the Gemara says, why did they eat first? He says, hey, Halal first. The Gemara says, well, you don't say Halal HaGadol on an empty stomach. You have to first be full and then say Halal. So the Gemara asks, but Rav Papa once went to the shul in Abigovar, and over there he said a fast day, and the rain fell, and he said Halal Gadol first, and then they went home to eat and drink. So according to what you're saying, they weren't allowed to do that. The Gemara says that's different. That was Mechuzah. In Mechuzah, people get drunk often, and if you didn't send them home to eat and drink first, they would get drunk, and then that would be the end of Halal Gadol. So therefore he said, no. First we're going to say Halal Gadol, then we'll go home and eat.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.